Now, I've been listening to your programme, and it's beginning to sound like the Labour Broadcasting Corporation. Everybody's phoning in, denigrating Donald Trump, whom I think is possibly one of the best strategists of the 21st century.
Right now, politics has entered a strange era where confidence matters more than clarity. And this debate perfectly captures the problem. You've got a caller passionately declaring Donald Trump the greatest strategist of the 21st century, making enormous claims about global stability, oil routes, China, Iran, and military power. But the second the host asks for one clear explanation of the actual strategy, everything starts unraveling. And honestly, this is becoming a pattern across modern political media. Big emotional statements get thrown around constantly, but very few people stop to ask the most basic question imaginable. What's the plan? Not the slogans, not the campaign lines, not the dramatic speeches, the actual plan. Because when leaders make aggressive foreign policy decisions, the stakes are serious. We're talking about global markets, military escalation, civilian lives, and the possibility of wider regional instability. So people naturally expect there to be a coherent roadmap behind the rhetoric. But what happens in this conversation is fascinating. The more the caller tries to explain the supposed strategy, the more scattered the argument becomes. And by the end, it almost feels like the supporter is creating explanations on behalf of the administration rather than describing policies that were ever clearly communicated publicly.
John's in Kingsbury. John.
Hi. I've been listening to your programme, and it's beginning to sound like the Labour Broadcasting Corporation. Everybody's phoning in, denigrating Donald Trump, whom I think is possibly one of the best strategists of the 21st century. I think that he's saving the world from what would have been terrorists armed with nuclear weapons, and are deriding him. Keir Starmer, on the other hand, has been asked to help with the Straits of Hormuz because they believe there may be mines there. Nobody is saying anything about the 6 Royal Navy mine sweepers that were scheduled for decommissioning. They're in a state of disrepair. There's 6 of them. And the government have decided to invest the money that would have been used, which is $2.5 billion, to sort out those minesweepers by investing in a beta, a test thing where they will be hopefully detecting mines, but it's not ready to go yet.
Okay. John, do you mind if I just separate your 2 points? Firstly, on the President of the United States being the greatest strategist of the 21st century, what was the strategy to end this conflict with Iran? What's the end point of this conflict?
Before going into Iran, he went into the greatest country as far as oil resources go, which is Venezuela, and he's taken control of the oil fields there. Right. Now, that is where most of the heavy oil for China and Russia comes. So they can't prosecute a war. Taiwan or Russia is now actually having problems with fuel for its domestic use. They're having to import refined petroleum.
And this is a great point about Venezuela and the Venezuelans providing China in particular with oil. I agree. But can we focus on Iran? And as the greatest strategist of the 21st century, in your opinion, what was the strategy to get out of this war with Iran, to stop the escalation that would see a regional conflict or wider? What's the plan?
Yeah, well, the plan was that there is actually a plan B that nobody is talking about.
Okay, what's the plan B?
The fact is that Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the Arab Emirates have actually developed pipelines that are in place in case of this type of emergency that is capable of delivering 7 million barrels a day of oil to tankers that will then not have to go through the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, that's a big plus point. The fact is...
Well, where is that happening, John? So my listeners can... the people listening to this programme can rest at ease knowing that petrol prices are going to come down imminently because the Saudis are going to be pumping 7 million barrels of oil a day through the pipes that you say are the Americans' plan B.
No, absolutely not. The world use per day is 20 billion
So, John,
barrels.
Again, let's come back to the strategy that you say Donald Trump is resting upon that means he's the greatest strategist of the 21st century, and the strategy for exit from the war with Iran was...
going to obliterate their ability to up nuclear weapons and threaten Europe
that's the purpose.
and America.
I agree that's the purpose of one of the purposes that Trump has outlined for the war. They may have done that to a greater or lesser extent, don't know. But now that there is a blockage in the Strait of Hormuz, and now that there are missiles raining down on Gulf neighbours, what's the plan, as you understand it to be, from the Americans to get this to stop?
I think the plan must have been very much like in World War II, when Sir Winston Churchill actually developed a department called the SOE. SOE was, in World War II, a department that trained people to liaise with the...
Do you see such an offering from the Americans at the moment?
I think that the obvious way to deal with the failing Iranian clerical government at the moment is to arm the Iranians that actually used to call themselves Persians, and they were members
and how is
of
that? How is that going, John? How are the Iranians arming the civilian population of Iran to go and rise up against the remnants of that theocratic?
The problem you have with that is the Iranian clerics and their IRGC have actually eradicated 40,000 Iranians for protesting.
So, John, the plan that you say the president is relying upon, the one that we should have joined in with as part of our obligations to the alliance with America, that strategy has moved from Saudi's pipelines to Europe with 7 million barrels a day, arming the Iranians, which isn't happening, some sort of rebuffed version of a World War II department to go and sort this out diplomatically, which doesn't have any... That's not happening.
You don't understand what the SOE was. The SOE...
I don't care, because it's not happening. Where are you getting this idea of a strategy from?
Well, he's already prevented China from going to war with Taiwan. He's limited the heavy oil usage from Russia for its own use to perpetrate the war in Ukraine. I think that's a brilliant move in itself.
And on Iran?
Russians are now having to import refined fuel.
And on Iran?
Okay, on Iran, we are only a short way into the war. Iran's ability to defend itself is being dismantled.
You said it was going to be done in a couple of weeks. That it's going to be short, and you think it's a short one? That we're only a short way in?
I never heard him say it's going to be done in a couple of weeks.
Oh, well, John, you've not been listening, my friend. This was going to be done in a couple of weeks. The president said only the other week. And yet you've coupled together a strategy that the American president has not outlined, has never detailed, that none of the American administration have come up with. You've got something else. I mean, it's a good effort. Maybe they'll be on the phone to you, John, for a strategy. But the idea that this shows that Trump is the greatest strategist of the 21st century, not sure it stands up.
What makes this exchange so important is that it exposes the growing gap between political branding and actual accountability. Because in today's media environment, many supporters no longer judge politicians based on clear results or defined strategies. Instead, they judge them based on image, confidence, and the feeling of strength. And that creates a dangerous cycle where every action automatically gets interpreted as genius, even when nobody can fully explain the objective, the timeline, or the long-term consequences. The host kept returning to the same simple question throughout the discussion. How does this end? And somehow, despite all the confidence, all the praise, and all the dramatic claims about global strategy, that question never received a direct answer. That's the part viewers should really focus on. Because real leadership isn't just about sounding tough during a crisis. It's about having a clear direction, communicating it honestly, and being able to explain the path forward when people ask difficult questions. And in this conversation, the contrast became impossible to ignore. One side kept demanding specifics, while the other kept drifting into theories, assumptions, and imagined strategies that may not even exist publicly. That's why this debate resonated with so many people online. It wasn't just political commentary anymore. It became a snapshot of modern political culture itself. If you found this breakdown helpful, give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed, now is a great opportunity to do so. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.